Brendan, we have your intro slide here. I can't see what you guys can see.
Yeah, you're looking.
So Brendan, you're a career marketer, passionate about modern marketing, and you worked in a number of organizations. Maybe you can expand on that for us as well.
Sure.
And you're co-founder and COO of NAC. So we're looking forward to your presentation to see how NAC can help us scale our email creation in Marketo. So take it away. You want to? Can I pass the controls over to you?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. And yeah, look, happy to be here. Thanks for joining, guys, or anyone who's hopping on the recording. I'll try to make my jokes, good enough for all audiences here, live or not live. But I have to be careful because now I know they're on record, so I gotta watch that.
Are you able to share your screen?
I can. Yeah. Let me do that. So, look, I mean, here's what I'd like to do today. Discussion, if that makes sense for the folks here that are on the call. I know, Michael, you heard one of my presentations with one of our customers on a previous mug. What I'm going to be talking about today is essentially like just the preamble to that, but I want to have a discussion about. I'm going to just pause on one slide. And I think we can just talk through some of the things, some of the struggles that Marketo companies, Marketo people, ops people, and field marketers are dealing with today in terms of email creation and asset creation overall. So I just love to have a chat, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'll do like quick intro. We'll talk about a little bit about the areas that NAC kind of addresses. And the things that I hear from Marketo customers every day, and let's just jam on it a bit together, if that makes sense, guys.
Sure.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I'll do a real quick intro. Give me a second here. I got to figure out how this works on. Okay, share screen. Okay, all right. You guys, let me know when you can see my slides. Slides. You can see it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go into presentation mode here for a second. I hope this isn't risky. You guys tell me, can you see it now? Full screen here, yeah?
Full screen, yeah.
Love it. Great. Okay, so look, I'm talking a little bit today about scaling email creation in Marketo. I feel like, email sounds old and stodgy nowadays, right? But email, I gotta say, I haven't bumped into an enterprise or any organization that email isn't a huge part, or probably one of the biggest parts of their digital marketing strategy. And so, I mean, you guys can, correct me if I'm wrong there for you, but definitely email is still excuse me, a big thing, and certainly. Again, a big part of all digital marketing strategies today. So a couple of things we're going to talk a little bit about. So we'll talk about my story, kind of where I came from. So hopefully that helps you guys kind of understand a little bit about me and my history. We're going to talk about, like I said, what we're hearing from marketing operations people, in particular marketing operations people who are using Marketo in particular. We built a bit of a maturity model that's really all about the problems that we're uncovering at Marketo customers, sort of thing in terms of email creation. So we may not even touch on that, and I can tell you what NAC does if you want. How about that? How does that sound? I don't want to do a sales pitch here at all.
Yeah.
So really quick, I'm basically a career marketer, guys. So I started my life, my professional life in marketing. Worked for an organization called Cognos that got later acquired by IBM. I think still one of the largest acquisitions that IBM's ever done. I worked, I was part of the marketing team there. I was part of the campaigns team, and then did some product marketing as well. We were actually an early adopter of Eloqua back then, so that was a while ago. The picture up front of me there, Blaine, is few years old. So I think I look a lot older now, but I blame my last child for that. But I feel like it's been some time. It's been, let's call it 12, 15 years. And back then, Eloqua was like quite a new thing, and we were also one of Salesforce's early like enterprise, like large customers back then as well. So I learned a lot there about marketing, about marketing execution, about product marketing, and kind of what it takes to drive demand and use some pretty newfangled technology at that time to do digital marketing. I then jumped into a small startup here in Canada. We were about, I want to say 60 people when I started there, and I led product marketing there for a few years, and worked really closely with the demand generation team. I actually worked with a co-founder here at that company, and we were at that company one of Marketo's first customers back then. So that was, I want to say more like 8 or 10 years ago now, and so that was really fun. We learned a lot about Marketo early on. I learned how to work with a demand generation team who was also doing operations at the time. We didn't have a separate like marketing ops function back then. But worked with the implementation of Marketo there, and worked closely with the demand gen team to really kind of execute and drive some demand there. It was pretty fun. That company went on to get acquired eventually. I moved on to another large enterprise called Trend Micro. We did security software kind of all over the world, very spread out, very big in Asia and in Europe, and kind of number 2 or 3 in North America for security software. So I did lots of things there, but one of the most exciting things of my time that I had there in my 6 years there was leading the global marketing operations and analytics team. I actually led the implementation of Marketo there globally. We actually replaced something like 18 different marketing automation platforms. So that was a lot of fun. And also, like, some of those were Marketo. So replacing Marketo with Marketo is really interesting. So, but definitely learned a lot there about what it takes to not just kind of affect the change that needs to happen for a big enterprise marketing team to adopt a platform like Marketo, but also some of the struggles that a team goes through as they implement and try to execute marketing in Marketo specifically. So that I learned a ton there. I then now fast forward to today, left, co-founded NAC. And really what we set out to do with NAC is to solve all the problems that I actually had leading my team at my previous company there. We had, you guys all know, your jobs are not easy, to say the least, but certainly there was a lot of struggles that we had standing up the platform, getting kind of in a position with our content that we wanted to be in, and being able to kind of run as fast as our organization wanted to, and really get the most out of our Marketo implementation. And so that's really what we set out to do with NAC is really make marketing and particularly creating marketing assets simple, easy for anyone to do, so that they can get the most out of their marketing automation platform. We actually, NAC started out integrating with just Marketo. We now integrate with pretty much every marketing automation platform out there. And I can tell you, it's not just Marketo that has these issues that we're going to discuss. It's a lot of marketing automation platforms, if not all of them. So again, that's kind of where we're at now as a company. But any questions so far? I probably, I maybe didn't convince you that I'm the smartest guy in the world, but certainly have some experience with some smart people like you guys.
No, it's really interesting to hear the background too, and in terms of where you've been, and I think it gives a lot of credence to the thought process in terms of how we've seen the product develop out as we've been using it in different instances and whatnot. So
Mhm.
appreciate that. It kind of gives you some sense when you think of a product roadmap. You think, okay, well, why is this feature being added in? So I'd kind of like to ask you a little bit about that as well too, in terms of kind of what you've been developing recently with Knack, right? I think historically it's been email creation, but if I remember correctly, the last bit that I've read about it too is that that's pivoting and you're expanding upon the capabilities of the platform too, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. Yeah, good question. So, that's I think initially what we set out to do, Michael, is to solve probably what probably what most think of, or what every company is kind of doing the most of, right? Which is email, right? We wanted to solve that problem, email creation, for every customer in the world. We feel like we're doing a great job of that, where there's still, I mean, of course there's lots to learn and lots to, features, lots of features to build there still, of course, but we think we've done that at our hundreds of customers. And the next thing in our sites, and certainly the next thing actually that our customers tell us, is that, hey, look, this is great. You're solving all my problems around email creation, but we have all the same exact problems for landing pages. Can you help us there? So that's one thing that is very, I would say, like right in our crosshairs at the moment. We're working really hard here. Way smarter people than me are working on it, which is good news for everyone. But we're looking to do the same thing that we're doing for email, also for landing pages. So we know that marketing teams around the world are struggling with email creation, but they're also struggling kind of in the same vein with landing page creation as well. So that's kind of in our sites, certainly. And I think the future of Knack overall is we really want to be in a place where we can be the platform that marketers, enterprise marketers, can go to build all of the assets they need for a digital campaign, right? What we're hearing from our customers is that they actually want to decouple their asset creation from any proprietary systems like marketing automation platforms, right? Like Marketo, as you guys know, there's a lot of proprietary things that have to happen in Marketo to even just to build one email, right? And CMOs at our customers are telling us, we want to get away from that. Like, what if we want to move off of Marketo onto a new platform? What if other groups want to build emails and send them from SendGrid or from Outlook or from Gmail or other platforms like that. So not only are we trying to democratize email creation or generally digital asset creation for everyone, it's not just the marketing team. It's actually across the entire enterprise. Does that kind of help, Michael?
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I think it's interesting times to kind of hear about what you're doing and kind of the perspective that you see from it too. I always find, I say once a year, I always try and make an effort to kind of attend a webinar or a session that talks about kind of the evolution of the email client side of things. We all have kind of the struggle of trying to be able to code an email template and then recode it so it appears properly in Microsoft Outlook. And then have that question about whether it's rendering in Microsoft Outlook versus Outlook Live versus all of the versus MacMail and all the other platforms too. So would be great to hear, because I know we've touched base a couple of different times, and as you evolve with the email clients, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about some of the trends and the I don't know if challenges is the right word, but maybe the nuances of how those products change and how that requires Knack to adopt. And then if you're not using Knack, if you're like a traditional email designer, the type of work that you would have to go through if you weren't leveraging a tool like Knack to make sure that your coding is rendering properly on all these different email clients.
Yeah. Oh man, I'd love to discuss that, of course. So I'll tell you what. Why don't we? Let's talk about the struggles. We can talk about all of them. Let's include that in one of the struggles, right? I would call that, like just essentially like coding, testing, that kind of stuff, which, as you probably know, most organizations are doing as part of their email creation process today. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool.
It's not great that you have to go through that as a developer, but it's great that you're talking about these things to get resolution.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
let's talk.
I think one of the biggest challenges that I've run into is sort of that constantly in that branding hell, I call it, because whether I work for a larger enterprise too initially when working with automation, and we didn't our branding wasn't our company branding, it was all about product branding.
Mhm.
So therefore, every brand we marketed had to have different email templates, different landing page templates, and everything like that, and different colors, fonts, styles. Like everything was different because there was a brand book for every brand, and then you had the corporate brand on top of that as well for the things that were sort of non-branded, so to speak. And then I've seen that lately too, though, just with different clients I've been working with because we do some programs for different parts of, state and local governments. So they're running, mental health educational programs and, cultural competency programs and all that. And so each one has to have and wants their own branding, look, logos, look and feel and everything to go along with it because, they're working off of grants. So they got to demonstrate that they just didn't buy something and put it out there, but that they actually created something of value. And so that again kind of lends itself back to some of those challenges. I think in the guided landing page area, I've done a lot of creative things there, as far as getting over some of those hurdles, as far as figured out ways to like rearrange sections and all that without building new templates and stuff like that. But it's definitely not easy. You still find yourself cracking open the code and tweaking the templates
Yeah.
for here and there. But so yeah, I'm kind of interested though to see. Well, I haven't seen NAC, as far as how you use it as a product, but I understand the concept and kind of where you're going to go with landing pages would be interesting.
Mhm.
To see if it's going to have sort of a web flow sort of a approach to the design and stuff like that. So be interesting to see and hear a little bit more. And after you get through, but I definitely want to, get through your content here too, because I think scaling, I think the rate limiter there is creating something new and testing it and then replicating it. So,
Yeah.
and then there's the whole, you know, proofing and checking and QA and all those steps that are in between and how do you get your arms around that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think what you're talking about certainly is I would say probably issues 1 and 2 here, right? It's
Mhm.
coding any email, right, is hard and tedious. I think let alone a Marketo template, which has all the all the syntax is embedded and to be fully editable and all that fun stuff. Like I can't. I can barely spell HTML properly, so I can't speak. I can't say that I've done it before, but this is like something that I hear every single day from Marketo customers. Is they have a problem that is caused by all of this past work that they've done, right? Which is all the sunk costs that they've and time that they spent developing their template or templates, right? And they feel like they can't not only can they not change the design of the template because they'd have to go back to that tedious, hard, maybe expensive, situation of recoding the whole template. But they're actually afraid to even make small changes or even do edits in the template itself because even then it breaks, right? Even a well-coded template, like the best coded template in the world, it still has issues, right? Users get in, they add content, it breaks the mobile responsiveness. It's really not a fun situation. So these templates end up being, not only are they expensive or take months to build sometimes, they're very fragile, right? And nobody wants to touch them, right? Once they're built, it's like, oh, we invested 2 years ago on a template, and oh my God, we can't change it now. Like that would be crazy, right? Or they go, I hear this all the time where customers say, oh my God, we spent months building a template, and 3 months later, our company went through a rebrand, and we had to friggin' code all the templates. Oh my god, and it's a nightmare, right, for a lot of companies. And then further to that, what happens, right? Like the second issue there, I think, Blaine, that you're talking about is like staying on brand, or actually maybe more than that, not just staying on a brand, but actually having options, right, for different designs of brand, creating new options for brand designs, all that kind of stuff, right? That becomes a big problem. Again, I think mostly caused by templates, right? Again, templates are hard. Redesigning templates are impossible. They need to be fully coded again and all that fun stuff, right? So that's kind of like, I mean, just to like give you an idea, like the reason we're talking about this is like Knack kind of takes those away, right? We have customers. One of our biggest customers is one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, and those guys, like, I swear they must have 10,000 different modules in Knack, right, for their 500 plus users. So they're offering people right down to the country they live in, or their marketing managers live in. They're offering them, 5 different header options each, right, for different brands that they manage, right? They're able to publish just the brand options that that person is responsible for, right? They don't have to see every single, drug that the pharmaceutical company owns, and oh my God, that's the Advil header, not the Lyrica header, or whatever. They don't have to worry about that. You can kind of segregate, their Knack instance so that they're only seeing the brand or brands that they're responsible for. So things get really easy there, and they don't have to do any coding at all or maintain the template whatsoever. The kind of, again, Knack kind of blows up that kind of thing, the whole paradigm of templates and being reliant on templates and coding templates and all that fun stuff. Essentially, Knack's an email creation platform. You build everything in Knack. It's drag and drop, even for admins, and even end users. It gets even easier. Admins just drag and drop their way to building, beautiful looking on-brand modules. They can even control what's editable and what's not in those modules, and then let your users build the emails themselves. Right? They just drag and drop modules. They update the copy. Even send it for approval and review in Knack, and then the final version of the email, when it's done, fully approved, just gets synced right into a Marketo program, like the end, right? All the Marketo syntaxes are automatically embedded. What customers rely on Knack for is that they will render perfectly every time when sent from Marketo. That's what our customers pay us for. So, for those first two things, certainly those paradigms kind of disappear, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, actually. What you're I totally understand what you're talking about, and I like it from a technical perspective. And I feel like the piece that doesn't get discussed as much when you think about this, the value proposition on all this, is the human capital element of it. And I think back to, my last agency, we had 4 different people in creative services to be able to help do just front end coding, and there was always one of those 4 people who was kind of the longest tenured employee, who had an extra layer of experience that the other designers would have to go back to ask, if I put this code, if I put this attribute in a nested table versus a div tag, what's that going to do when it renders in the Marketo editor versus this? Because he had that level of experience because he had been working with the code for so long. But if anything happened to that one person, the rest of the team, it could get it done, but it'd take longer. There'd be a kind of an X factor. You wouldn't know what would happen. And, documentation is one way to kind of solve that, but you're still kind of dealing with an unknown. And then also, that if he's missing is one part. If you want to scale or you get extra work that comes in, being able to onboard a new front end designer to be able to learn all of those skills is pretty onerous, really, to ask somebody to be able to do in short order without having to go through that trial and error period of being able to kind of learn, how the HTML works and doesn't work in specific circumstances and with responsiveness and whatnot. And, you must see that a lot too too, obviously with some of the larger enterprises as you're kind of working with groups that are kind of ebbing and flowing from a people count too.
Absolutely, of course. And you mentioned it, Michael. Like you had one person at a whole agency, right? Who knew that stuff, and I talk to enterprises all the time. They just lost that person, right? Oh my God, they left. They're gone. We can't even code one email from Marketo anymore. We don't know how to do it, right? So like that kind of thing. Enterprises want to de-risk themselves a little bit, even if they have a person like that on staff. Like it's still scary and dangerous for them, right? So again, if they lose that person or something happens, they get pulled into a higher value project than maybe coding out email templates, which, as you guys also probably know, right? Not the most highest value work, but can be actually very time consuming and expensive, right? Unfortunately. So yeah, definitely. That's a huge trend we're seeing actually generally in the market right now is even companies with those resources, they don't want to use them to hand code an email. Of course not, right? Why? Like, why don't we get them onto kind of bigger stuff? Like we get them coding our platform, get them coding our product, do you know what I'm saying? Kind of repurpose them for different things.
Yeah. We were, kind of a parallel to that. And this is a generation, or I think 3 generations or 4 generations before all the technology that we're talking about here. But just, looking at a video on the history of Adobe. And I think it was about a couple of days ago I was watching this actually, and they were talking about Adobe's very first product was Adobe Illustrator before PostScript, right? And they were doing demos, and they were saying, it was an interesting marketing case because most graphic designers back in the early 80s never used a computer at all, right? And trying to kind of say to them, what's the value proposition of changing your entire workflow to be able to start using computer graphics versus trying to do everything by hand? And the real case is productivity. How much more can I produce if I'm able to use software to be able to build some of these drawings and then be able to print those out and produce them using Adobe PostScript? And I think that's the same, value proposition, or there's sort of a parallel value proposition. Even if I have those coding abilities, how many more emails, how much more of the redundant, the rudimentary coding of being able to kind of make sure my tags match and do all of the basic HTML can I eliminate, and then really only focus on the harder level issues that might crop up at different points with, I don't know why those are caused. Those might be different types of content pieces or things like that have to be kind of put into play. So I think that's the other piece of it, is even if you have those skills, how much more raw product can you produce by being able to kind of systematize that, I guess. Yeah,
that's exactly it. And that's kind of typically like, even enterprises that do have a resource like that, and some of the lucky ones do have those resources, although they're getting more and more scarce. But those people, although, when they first see Knack, they go, well, what's this going to do to my job, right? But what ends up happening is those people end up transitioning into Knack administrators, right? They set up the content in modules. They use the drag and drop editor. We have a couple of email developers, HTML developers on staff, and they've said like, oh my God, I'll never hand code another email again, right? I mean, they grew up hand coding emails, right? And they're quick at it, they're good at it, but no one can beat a drag and drop editor that is always coding for the newest, best clients and mobile devices and all that fun stuff. Like, it doesn't make sense anymore. So that's kind of the typical transition that we see, and what one person can turn into. This actually goes right into that next point here. The third point down here is that person can transition from taking in a request to build an email, going and hand coding it out themselves, getting it back to the requester, for feedback, going back and forth, and then et cetera, et cetera. They can enable the requesters, the people who would need the emails built, to build it themselves, right? So they can they're taking themselves and kind of 10xing themselves and saying, hey, I've now gone from being a service center in a central organization taking orders, right, and able to, code an email a day or two or whatever, to everyone out there, hundreds of my field marketers or whatever, building the emails themselves and sending them to me for approval, right? To making, I'm going through and making sure that they look good from a branding perspective, the content is on point. I'm going to maybe sync them personally into a Marketo folder, Marketo program, or, I'll schedule the program to run, set up the logic, that kind of stuff. That person can kind of become a lot more scalable, right, in the long run.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about, I don't know if you have any of the statistics on this or not, but it'd be interesting to kind of maybe compare and see exactly what the quantifiable output is like for that. I guess it may, let's say maybe it takes 3 hours to kind of hand code something from scratch or to recode a template, right? And
Yeah.
that's arguable, right? But have you been able to over the years kind of calculate out exactly how much time or productivity or output that you've been able to see in terms of an incremental lift before and after the system?
Yeah, great question. And actually, that's something now that our customers are asking us specifically for, and something that we actually give right to them is now, because we're a SaaS platform, right? We can kind of see, and we have all the data on what's kind of happening inside the platform. So when you have hundreds of marketers around the world building thousands of emails, you can imagine, our customers want to take a look at that, and they want to see, hey, how long is it, does it take for a marketer to build an email now, right? Compared to what it used to be when either they were engaging with their agency to get them built, or we had a central team building them, or, we had a big agency on record, like Accenture, Deloitte, or somebody like that, who was kind of just taking all the requests centrally and kind of building them all out that way. And so that's kind of something that we give to all our customers is full visibility on their usage, how many emails each user is creating, how long it's taking them to create the emails, how long they're taking to go through the approval process. We can kind of track all of that. And I'll tell you, one of the, I'm just a vendor here, right, guys? So you guys can, you can take or leave my statistics here if you'd like, but definitely happy to, hook you up with one of our customers who's actually doing this. But our customers are seeing like just a crazy, like kind of out of this world comparison there, right? Where, from the initial time a marketer goes, hey, I think I might want to create a new email, to the time it's kind of fully approved and synced into Marketo, into a program and scheduled to run, goes from literally weeks, right, at most enterprises, to, depending on how long the approval process takes, a day. The actual build time for the email, is usually in the minutes, right, as opposed to hours. So it's, a really long, complex email with lots of content maybe takes an hour, right? A relatively basic, webinar email, or just popping in some images and some data or some dates and info and whatever, can take 10 minutes. So there is real quantifiable data there behind that. And, even in terms of, build time is one thing, but even revision cycles and things like that, when people are building on brand emails, because it's fully controlled in our platform, versus totally going off and building something that's not on brand and having 9 or 10 revision cycles, for that one particular email. We've heard, again, one of our pharma customers has kind of did a big review of that. Their typical review cycle before NAC was 9 review cycles for every email. So 9 back and forths on things like copy and design and all that kind of stuff. After NAC, it was down to an average of 1. So that is like, that's like gold for our customers. Yeah, it's huge. And at scale, of course, as you grow, scale that out to hundreds or thousands of marketers. Geez, it's a big value for sure.
What are you seeing in terms of that revision process? Is that all done within NAC, or do you kind of hear anecdotally that people will maybe export that to like a project management platform or something like that to be able to share with the different stakeholders and track sign off from different parties inside of a MOPS enterprise?
Yeah, so we're actually hearing more and more all the time, as you guys probably are as well, about like project management platforms, right? These things are kind of everywhere. I think marketing is getting to the point. I mean, you guys, we all grew up in marketing likely, right? And we saw the arts and crafts era, and that kind of came and went, and now marketing's getting pretty real. It's getting to be a pretty real function inside organizations these days. Not to take away from what marketing used to do before the digital age, but I think marketing is getting a lot more organized, right, inside of most enterprises today, and I think as a result, we're getting serious about project management and stuff. And so one of the things, like, we're not a project management tool. Yes, we enable lots of collaboration and approval processes, and it can be quite rigid if you want in NAC. So a lot of our customers do adopt our approval process, and what NAC can do, and we're working with a few of our customers now on this, is to NAC can easily inform what stage an email is at in terms of the creation process. NAC can inform a project management platform of what's going on, right? Hey, this email is currently in NAC being created by the end user. It's being reviewed and approved in NAC, and usually sometimes that's kind of an initial approval or just collaboration around the email creation, and then the actual like final sign-off approval happens in the PM tool. But we've got customers that are kind of doing the full end-to-end email process just in NAC, and then just saying, oh yeah, it's been approved in NAC, therefore it's approved now in Workfront or Wrike or something. But we have other customers that are saying, hey, you know what, I want to continue to manage that in my project management tool, and we're working with some of our customers to actually kind of get a little bit more granular with what's going on, so we can kind of talk back and forth to those platforms. But so I mean, again, we're seeing that a lot, but customers are doing it kind of lots of different ways. But yeah, we're seeing that at a lot of customers for sure.
I think it's interesting. It sounds like you have kind of a plethora of customers from really large scale enterprises to more kind of mid-enterprise or commercial level customers. And how are you, as a leader in a software vendor, right? How are you able to kind of keep in touch with the feedback that you get from all of those different groups to kind of balance out kind of what your priorities are to be able to enhance and improve the product? Do you have kind of like a focus group of large enterprises and then mid-level enterprises? And then what's your process like to kind of choose what direction that you need to go in moving forward to keep up with all the changes that are happening out in the industry as a whole?
Yeah, lots of Zoom calls.
Okay,
let me tell you that for sure. So yeah, I've logged a lot of hours on Zoom for sure, chatting with customers. But the good news, this is really interesting, right? We feel like our platform is really suited to very large enterprises who are looking to really scale enterprise creation or enterprise email creation, and enable people, blah blah blah, all the stuff we've been talking about, right? But the good news is these problems are not enterprise problems, right? I mean, everything we're talking about here, templates being coded, going off brand, being overwhelmed by requests to build emails, wanting people out of Marketo because they're getting into trouble, collaborating around emails, blah, blah, blah. Like all of that stuff, all those problems actually happen at the world's biggest enterprises, but they also happen at little startups, right? I mean, so it's kind of wild, right? That all these problems, and yeah, they get a little bit more intense as you kind of go up market, but we're solving problems for some of our customers have 3 employees, right, at their company, and we have one marketing person who just needs to get their job done, right? And we have like an entry level product called Builder, which is basically like a stripped down version of our enterprise product. So but it's really all focused on building emails easier. So taking those certainly those top 2 or 3 things here on this list just off their plate, right? So the good news about that, yes, it gets tough because we have, hundreds of customers now ranging in, crazy size. We have a lot of, we have a couple of Fortune, 10 customers, and we even have, again, like I said, like people, 2 or 3 people at the company. But the good news about that is that what's really cool, if we can stay in touch with all of them, which we try our best to, we learn a lot from the small customers, right? That is, the small customers are the ones I think that are pushing us to innovate the most, probably because they have things that they want to do that really push the envelope, right? They have things like, hey, I want to put GIFs in my email, right? I want to do crazy long, big background images that span kind of the entire email. I want to look different. I want to have 10 different designs or 20 different designs, or that kind of thing. They're really pushing the envelope, those customers. And what that does, it's funny because we kind of take the things that we learn at our tiny customers and we bring those to our enterprise customers, and our enterprise customers kind of didn't even think of that stuff, right? They're not they're not waking up in the morning saying, oh, I want, I want all those cool things. I want background images and GIFs and blah, blah, blah. They're more thinking like, geez, I gotta enable my people. I gotta enable my users. I gotta save time, money, all that stuff. But then we bring those innovations forward to them, and they're just delighted, right? They're just going, wow, this is unbelievable. Like, this is really cool. Like, we're actually not even ready for this kind of thing, right? But it helps them. It certainly helps us because they get excited about what we're doing. But they look at us and they go, these guys are the most innovative company in the world. And we go, well, no, we're just listening to a few of our customers that are down market from you, So I think there's good things about that, certainly, but definitely, you get spread pretty thin. But that's all joys of entrepreneur life, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure. I think, in some ways, it's I see the same things, that sometimes the smaller teams don't have the luxury of sort of process and multiple roles and all that. So somebody's wearing many hats. And so there's sort of that balance between, moving quickly, but also having those quality checks, in the process too. So I think that's something to be considered as well. And typically the requests coming in, for marketing assets to be created and produced and sent out are usually by somebody that has no idea what it's like to work inside of Marketo or inside of the tools. So they're like, oh yeah, we need this to go out at 10. I'll get you, but I'm busy. I got a Zoom call till 9:30, so I'll get you the edits after that. It's like, okay, so 30 minutes is you're saying between, your input and by the time I have a quality controlled checked, email to go out. So not necessarily the best processes sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's a good point, right? And yeah, we see that a lot. We even get, I hear from some customers who say like, hey, one of my users just sent me a design that's like, I don't even know how I could replicate this in an email, like they're sending them things that like, here, I want an email to look like this. And it's just not possible in email, right? Like it just wouldn't ever be supported by any clients and stuff like that. So we bump into that a lot as well. Help customers, we can only do so much. We can't, of course, can't control what clients can render and what they can't, but definitely like, we help them get as much of the way there as we can, as well. And our editor, I think editors generally get email editors generally get a bad rep from people, but our editors pretty powerful, and I don't think we've ever bumped into a design that was like a real email design that we couldn't replicate with a customer or for a customer. It's but yeah, that's certainly something that we see a lot.
It's kind of interesting, Blaine is this Indianapolis mug is the first place that I presented as a presenter, and it was on using Marketo with multiple brands, multiple domain names, and a lot of that was using kind of local tokens and being able to pull token information in. And I think, if I look at a point of differentiation, if I from what I know of NAC is you were kind of an early adopter of being able to pull in data from these marketing automation platforms to help personalize a lot of the content that you're producing to kind of sync back to the marketing automation system. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about the business process for being able to say we're going to make the investment to kind of not just connect to push our content to Marketo, but also to grab content or data from Marketo to help with that enrichment process. And in some of the initial challenges and what you've been able to do as the APIs have changed on the platform to kind of empower more features and functionality between Marketo and NAC.
Yeah, look, good question. We are, it's funny. There is a kind of a line, not a real line, but a fictitious line here somewhere that I think customers and us need to draw, between creation and between like execution and data, right? And we're kind of constantly thinking about where that line should be, right? Exactly where it starts and ends, right? Where what we set out to do originally is really fix the creation process, right? Like we wanted to hone in on creation, make it easy. Again, all the stuff we talked about, no code, anyone can do it, blah, blah, blah. And we've had customers in the past ask us to say, hey, you know what? We need you to keep going, right? We want to actually do things like dynamic content. We want to bring in our tokens and even populate them. And we want you to dive into our Marketo database and pull data out and you help us do segmentation and all that stuff in NAC. And so we had to make we have to make this choice every day, basically, but really, like, we have to draw the line somewhere. And right now, right where the line is, and this could change in the future, certainly, depending on what our customers are looking for. But I'll tell you what, we have just generally a lot of customers that love that we actually don't connect to the Marketo database. They don't want, actually, they can't have vendors connecting to their data. Right. So one of our customers is Google, and those guys, let me tell you, like, they do not want us touching their data. Like that is like gold for them. And they're very careful there, right, with what they allow and don't allow. So this is where, we're trying to kind of scratch the periphery of, how deep do we go, right? Yes, can we bring in Marketo tokens? Absolutely, right? That's something I think that is kind of, I think affords, it's really time savings, right? You guys know tokens are just text, right? But really just having a drop down with all your tokens available, program level and system level tokens, from your Marketo instance, it's convenience, right? And it's easy. Other things that we pull from Marketo is like folder tree out of your marketing activities folder tree, right? So that you can actually from NAC see all your folders, see your programs. You can sync emails to a specific program. You can even like limit what users can see, like if you want them just stuck to one or a couple of folders in your instance or one workspace or whatever. All that kind of we pull in from Marketo. But to go much deeper than that, even around dynamic content, we would have to own some of the data, right, in the Marketo instance. And again, that's something that certainly we do hear from some customers, but again, a lot of customers don't want us doing. So that's kind of the line that we're kind of teetering on, certainly. We make it as dead simple and easy as possible to do things like dynamic content because we as you may have mentioned, we embed all of the Marketo syntaxes into the code. So when the email syncs into Marketo, it's actually fully editable, just like a well-coded template would be. So we do that automatically. So basically, by the time the email gets into Marketo, our customers that are doing dynamic content, and look, lots of Marketo customers don't do any dynamic content, right? But I don't know if that's a secret or anything, but definitely, if the customers that are doing dynamic content and using it heavily, just pop into Marketo, they open up the Knack email in Marketo, and they just select their sections to make dynamic, right? We make it really simple and easy. So that's kind of our strategy right now. And there's only so much you can do, certainly through the Marketo API. And one of the things that we're doing now through the API is having the ability not to just sync an email from Knack into an existing Marketo program, but also be able to not only create it, but also schedule to run a Marketo program all from Knack. So you can say, hey, I want to either sync an email, completed, approved email into this spot or this particular program that was already created in Marketo, or you can allow users to create their own, and they're not really creating their own, they're actually cloning from a program template of the admin's choosing. And so users can do it, and they, again, even can schedule it to run in Marketo. So we're trying to kind of stay ahead, certainly, of what's possible through the APIs that Marketo affords us. And that's kind of another thing I think that is, we have lots of customers have great ideas, but there's only so much that's possible through an integrated platform, through APIs. Does that kind of answer your question, Michael?
Yeah, it really does. And it's interesting too, because it talks a little bit about trends too, and some of the things that are happening. And if I can, I hope this isn't too much of a loaded question a little bit, but it might be a little bit, but I'd love to kind of talk the other side of it too, from the API side of things to maybe the design side of trends, and in terms of the products and the resources that are out there. And I think back in the day, a lot of it was, do we use like an IDE or a development environment like a Dreamweaver or something like that? And now a lot of that's moved to kind of cloud environments, and the workflow has changed as the tools have evolved and kind of changed. And one of the changes that I think is coming up now is kind of the reskinning of Marketo and the UI interface, and the design studio in Marketo has long been talked about as a piece of the product roadmap that with Adobe with Adobe's input and influence is going to change dramatically. So could you just talk a little bit about how you're able to kind of maintain the relevance of Knack with some of the other competition that's coming in, and some of there's a lot of changes that we see kind of coming up in the horizon, right? So how do you maintain relevance with in that space?
And if you could touch on that, and then I don't know how much more you have, but we're running up to the hour, so I want to make sure we cover the topics there. And I think for myself and maybe Ashley and others, I don't know if you have any screenshots or anything of your product too, just to kind of, I've never seen it working in its demo mode, so I was just kind of trying to get my mind around what it is, and that from that standpoint. I have my own, I think I have a picture in my mind's eye, but that may be different. So if we can kind of work through that.
Sure, of course. I'll tell you what, I'm going to load up a different slide deck, so I'll show you some screenshots and stuff. But Blaine, I'm happy to give you a demo at any time, for real. I'd love to personally show you. So, please just let me know. I can do that anytime. But yeah, so let me answer Michael's question real quick first. So Michael, yeah, it's a great question. And look, believe me, that if there's one thing that keeps me up every night, which is not my 8-year-old daughter, it's 8-month-old daughter. I also have an 8-year-old daughter too. She doesn't keep me up as much. But it is that, right? It's wow. What happens if Marketo comes out with a new editor tomorrow, right? What happens to us, right? And are we relevant anymore? And I'll tell you, what helps me sleep at night every night is not the fact that I think it's going to take another 5 years for Marketo to do anything with their editor, and that is not a shot at them. It really is as you guys might know, change is slow, certainly on platforms like that. But just a fact, certainly. But the other thing is those platforms like Marketo, and actually basically every other marketing automation platform, they don't have the ability to do things at the granular level that our enterprise customers want to do. And it's not just about a great editor, right? Anyone can have a great editor. There's tons of great editors out there today. There's a bunch. You can probably pay $10 a month to get a great email editor. But what our enterprise customers can't live without is not just the ability for any user to make anything in a platform, right? It's about control, right? Controlling what users can do, what users can't do, what they can edit. Can they resize this image? Can they add more than 100 characters in this text block? Can they see all my templates and content in my whole instance, or can I only see the things relevant to them? Can they log into Marketo and execute a freaking program that blasts an email to 10 million people? Oh my God, right? Like, we've all been there. Like, those are the kinds of things that Marketo and other marketing automation platforms just can't do. They can't get down to, hey, this user can create emails from modules only. They can't build them from this way or that way, or they can't edit footers, or they can't, those kinds of things. In order to do email well at scale, our customers need that. They need more than just a good editor. They need control and scalability, and that's kind of what we give to them. And further that, Michael, and this is maybe a separate thing, is they want their users more than just marketing, building emails that are branded and on brand, right? They want their customer support teams. They want their internal HR communications teams. And those people send from different places. They send from SendGrid. They send from Gmail. They send from more than just Marketo, right? So they want to decouple completely away from marketing automation and those proprietary things that go with that, right? They want to give email to the masses, not just the marketing masses, right? So does that kind of answer your question?
It's a whole interesting area in and of itself. It's this kind of corporate strategy almost in a way too, right? But actually it kind of parallels in a way too, because marketing has a more increased role in corporate strategy too. So it's kind of neat to hear that and just to learn insights about what's happening in that space.
Absolutely, yeah. And we have a couple CMOs on our board, and that's what they tell us. It's like, hey, this isn't about marketing, right? This is actually about brand. And if I'm doing my job as a CMO, I need to own brand everywhere. I can't just own brand in the marketing automation platform. I have to own brand in every email that's sent internally and externally to the company. And that's where we see, a lot of our customers are kind of really branching out and kind of trying to decouple those systems. So yeah, here's a couple of screenshots here, guys. Again, this is pretty high level, but Blaine, happy to give you a full-on demo here. We tout being able to build any design. I told you, we've never bumped into an email design we can replicate in Knack. Of course, we say, our customers can build anything. They build it all in an easy-to-use drag-and-drop editor. Okay, so this is just you're dragging in content, structure blocks. You guys have probably seen, these cool email editors before, but it's not just about a good editing experience like we were talking about. It's all about permissions that can be set at the user level, and we can decide, can users build from all these individual content and structure blocks? Can they edit the email width and all the actual language of the HTML and stuff like that? Or, more typically, can they just build from some pre-built, building blocks, these modules, right, that have been created and published to them, that are brand approved, right? So we talked a bit about rendering, right? Anything you build in Knack, we're building in the background the HTML. We're writing it all. We're embedding the syntaxes, and for Marketo, for Eloqua, for wherever the email is sent from, we do that, even including Outlook, right? Gmail as well. We have a plugin for Gmail, so bring in your Knack email into Gmail. It'll render perfectly. And you don't have to worry about that. So, it used to be code, test, maybe code a template, use it for a month, then go back, test the template again. Oh my God, there's been 3 new clients. We got to that goes away, right? Don't forget it. Our engine's always coding things to render properly. No more testing required at all. Okay. Brand control, we talked about this. You can fully lock items, right? Footers are really popular for this, right? People don't want their users editing legal terms in footers and, editing, date or addresses and things like that in their footers. Fully locked down footers is very popular. But other things, you can even kind of set custom restrictions. So you can say, hey, you know what? I want my users to be able to set the font, but I don't want them to be able to set the text color. I want it to always be black in this text block. You can do that, right? Or you want to say, hey, I don't want users to be able to italicize text ever in an email. Great, you can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So we talked about restrictions here. That this is another area, right? You can set limitations and restrictions around, character limits in text blocks, character limits on buttons, size limits, padding limits, that kind of thing, everywhere and anywhere. And then, of course, you can manage multiple brands, right? So you can actually manage, our big enterprise customers. For example, Google, of course, is using us across multiple regions and multiple brands. So, we have, the Google Ads team is using Knack. They have a brand defined for the ads team. And then there's another brand defined for the Think with Google group. And those guys are building completely different emails, totally different branding. But of course, the only modules, the only content they can bring in to build from is the one that applies to them, right? Mm-hmm. And the administrator at Google is sitting and managing all that content across all the brands.
Right.
Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. They also can restrict, again, someone from the Think with Google team building an email versus the ads team. Those people can only sync to specific locations in their Marketo instance, right? So the ads team can only sync to the ads workspace or even like a folder in the ads workspace, whereas the other team can sync to their workspace or their folder or whatever, right? So you can really get specific with what content, what approvers they have. They can be different across brands, again, and then where they can end up, where the email can end up at the end. Right? Okay. And we talked about user permissions a little bit, but again, this is like, can people create emails, edit other people's emails? Can they edit the modules? Are they, able to approve emails? Or can they leave comments on other people's emails? Can they build from scratch? Can they build from, a full-blown template or what we call a theme? How they build can all be defined right in Knack. Okay, this is again talks to what, the things that, the granular permissions that things like, Marketo, platforms like Marketo and other marketing automation platforms just can't do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And then we talked a little bit about approvals, but this is another area that we really enable is, set up your approval groups, right? Anyone at your company can be an approver. They can go into Knack. They can comment on emails. They can approve or reject emails. They get an email in their inbox every time they get an approval. We see companies blasting around hundreds of test emails from Marketo. Like, you guys, I'm sure you've all received them, right? Like, you get a test email from your Marketo instance. What am I supposed to do with this? What is this for? I don't even know who this is from, right? No context around it, right? So this is kind of really what we enable as well. The ability to just easily do this. You get a preview of the actual email you're supposed to approve at the bottom of the email, all mobile responsive. You can approve it right on your mobile device if you want. Really, really easy. No more test emails.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Looks good.
That's a good idea.
Cool. And then workflows. If you want to have like a rigid approval workflow, you can set it up. You can have a straight up, sequential workflow. It goes to, Michael, and it goes to Blaine, and then it goes to me or whatever. Or you can have, parallel approvers. It goes to me and Michael, at the same time. And then once both of us approve, then it goes to the next stage. All totally customizable in Knack.
Okay.
So that's kind of the real quick overview, guys.
So, yeah, I think it's interesting. clearly, I think, there's obviously a lot of challenges around that. And I think, as much as people love social and other things, like you started out, I think, the email is still sort of cornerstone to marketing. It's sort of where you're going to get, you're going to get a starting point with somebody, on a program or a campaign, and it'll persist in their inbox until they either close it or act on it. So yeah, I think definitely email is definitely an important, part of what we do. And I think there's a balance there too, though. I think is like emails that look too glossy and promotional versus the personal text one. And there's kind of a balance between the two. Sometimes you want to emulate that personal touch too, but that can still be managed with a branding and a style, and using certain minimal elements, as well. But so I think, that's a good help.
Yeah, was that useful, guys? I'm glad we had a good
I
back
liked
and
it a
forth.
lot. It's very different than a lot of conversations that we've seen in other places. So I just love the format. I'd love to be able to continue something like this again in the future. And thanks for facilitating this, Blaine. By the way, this is great.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I have just one more slide I want to slip in there, I think, and this is just, something that I don't know if you've seen it or not. It came across in an email, from Marketo, but they commissioned Forrester to do a study on the economic impact of Marketo Engage. So, it was a pretty interesting report, and I think if you're interested in that, sometimes people are still in the mode of sort of justifying marketing automation platforms, for their business, or an investment in that, hey, we've got an initial investment, but we're underutilizing it, or we've got there's a lot more potential here. And I think that I think that this was an interesting study as well. And Brendan, if you had some similar examples as to why, how people could show financially, what was the ROI, of something like a tool from a time saving standpoint, process improvements and things like that, as well as just the quality improvements, how many emails, went out that were, bug free and things like that. But, so anyways, this was something that I came across as well. So if anybody wants some more information on that, or if you happen to miss that email, I can get you the link to it. So, yeah, I think that's about it, Brendan. I really appreciate your time and presenting here. I think we'll also be, we'll be sending this out again as a recording too, so get a little more airtime there, through the recording, for sure. But I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for that, and wish you a lot of luck with your endeavors, and how you're and hopefully we can help at least share this experience with others, and also just look forward to maybe an opportunity to work with you too down the road. So,
Yeah, of course. And thank you for the opportunity. It was great chatting with you guys. I love talking to Marketo people, especially smart Marketo people like you guys, because it's always good conversations. It's you guys know Marketo. I'm sure the deep dark depths of the platform.
Yeah.
So sometimes I get a little nervous, like, oh man, are they might ask me a tough question? So
no coding questions.
It was only my class today. So no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. It was great. That was really good. I appreciate the conversation, guys, and thanks for keeping it interactive.
All
right. It's awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.
Cheers. Yeah. I know.